Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 6 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Yes, this is post San Francisco 49ers, of course, defeating the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks on a 3-game slide. They began the season 3-0 and just cannot figure out how to play offense anymore. It is incredible. Over the course of today's live stream, of course, we're going to be answering any fantasy football related questions. So if you guys do have them, whether you include it via the live chat, whether it's included via the potential super chat, include your scoring format, standard, half PPR, full PPR. The more context that you provide, the easier it'll be to answer those questions. But just first and foremost, a couple thoughts. Mason getting injured. I just let's. You guys know what I'm about to say, right? I'd like to thank Jordan Mason for his efforts because he had no business coming back in that game. But I made a phone call at halftime. Specifically, I left a text and I made a phone call. I told Mason, listen, brother, you're going to have to go back into that game because your boy Andrew has a potential pick'em entry where he needs you to get a couple more yards. At halftime, Jordan Mason had 65 rushing yards, and he did your boy a favor. He went out there, he got those yards. Deebo Samuel did his job, so did DK Metcalf. This was the entry that I suggested at the end of today's video in regards to quarterback and tight end rankings, and chef's kiss, absolutely delivered. We're continuing to cook every single week, but man, Jordan Mason, he's injured. I get it. It's going to be a problem going into the future. Guarendo's going to be definitely a pickup, and just to make sure. But hey, man, this guy came back in order to secure your boy's overall entry and have ourselves a good start to Week 6 thus far. Now, in terms of overall, Brock Purdy looks great. George Kittle's him. Deebo Samuel, I told you guys for last week, we should be trading for Deebo Samuel. Ayuk disappears again. What a surprise. I don't know anymore. It doesn't make sense. Ayuk is a good football player, but man, he just disappears far too often. He is not required to perform in order for them to be in games. It's interesting. On the other half, DK Metcalf getting a touchdown pulled away from him late in that game. As a DK Metcalf manager myself, I'm sick to my stomach. Outside of that, luckily, of course, Kenneth Walker was able to find the end zone and find himself with a lot of receptions. Anytime Kenneth Walker is going to just continue to gather receptions of that kind of volume over the course of a game, I will not complain. I don't even care if he has 20 rushing yards by the end of the game. If you finish with a total of, what was the total? Let's see here. Kenneth Walker had himself a total of 8 targets, 8 receptions. Dude, that is ridiculous. So we'll take it, to say the very least, especially in a full PPR. I'm sure we're all happy. Either way, let's continue on. And let's answer questions, shall we? Let me go ahead and let's see here. One moment. I just need to do that, and then we're good to go. All right. Answering questions in the live chat. Very interesting day, to say the least, but we begin with Brian Luna, who sends in the following question. Says, in a half PPR scoring format, 12 teams trade Josh Jacobs and Khalil Shakir for Devontae Adams and Connor. I'd be willing to make that move. Yes, I'll take the Devontae Adams and Connor side rest of the season. Please do yourself a favor and pick up Trey Sermon in order to have the handcuff of James Conner just in case. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Robert Jameson says, that dude is my hero. He's my hero as well. You guys don't even understand how elated I was that he came back into the game in the second half and immediately plugged in 8 yards just to save the overall entry. That, really just came in clutch, to say the very least. Ridiculous. I told you guys I had to make a phone call. Everything was done and it was good to go. Good value for DK. Eduardo, yeah. Honestly, at this point, if you guys are potentially searching for a wide receiver to trade for this upcoming week, or potentially in the late half of Week 6 going into Week 7, DK Metcalf, coming off of 2 underwhelming performances, is someone that I'm absolutely going to trade for if you can potentially get. Now, obviously, he's a great player. He has name value, and that is going to make it more difficult to get him off of somebody else's hands. But in this circumstance, yes, I'm absolutely in the business of trying to trade for Metcalf coming off of these kind of lackluster performances. Because again, there are going to be many players in fantasy, many managers that may be, obviously really upset. And, it's warranted, a performance in which you're getting a touchdown called back. These are just simple mistakes that can be fixed. And it doesn't even affect the play ultimately. So I get it, but ultimately he's a great player. So if you trade for him, yeah. All right, let's see here. I needed Lockett, Tutty. to go to JSN. I said it in Wednesday's wide receiver video. For every single JSN manager, we all want Tyler Lockett to disappear, but he just doesn't seem to go away. Guy is just incredible at football, and he's done it with so much longevity. Chris Montoya sends in a question. Thank you, Chris. Chris says, in a PPR, thoughts on this trade? I would be moving Lazard and Mark Andrews for Bowers. Have been needing if you can move Lazard and Andrews for Bowers, Flowers, whichever one. It's Bowers though. This guy right here. Okay, the thumbnail of today's tight end and quarterback rankings episode. If you can trade Andrews and Lazard for Brock Bowers, you should absolutely 150% make that deal right now immediately. If someone's willing to give you Bowers for that little of compensation, strike before it's too late, before they come to their senses. Really at this point. Grant sends in a question. Thank you, Grant. Grant says, start 2 in a full PPR. We have Jaden Reed, we have Alvin Kamara, James Conner. I also have JT if he's healthy. Yeah, look, if JT's healthy, I'd play him alongside of Jaden Reed most likely, but if he's not, then I'll just roll with Alvin Kamara and Jaden Reed in that circumstance. Thank you. Trey Sermon is not James Conner's handcuff. Sorry, it's not Trey Sermon. What's the name? Goodness gracious. What's the name? Trey something. Oh my gosh. That's how much Trey Sermon is on the brain. Man, why am I... Look, I'm not even just like intentionally trying to say the wrong name. I just don't actually remember it. Trey Benson, thank you. Goodness gracious. Trey Benson would be the handcuff. That's who you would pick up. My apologies. You guys knew that I was in the ballpark. Somewhat so. Let's see here. Moving down this list. Okay. Let's see here. Where are we at? Mason getting injured probably cost me the L this week. Yeah, it is what it is. You can't really do anything about it. You were going to play him regardless. He was having an incredible game, early in that half. Just unfortunate. Everyone's spamming Benson. I get it. Everybody stay calm, okay? Please, everybody stay calm. We get it. We'll get there. I appreciate it, though. Thank you, guys. Let's see here. Kyron Williams, ACL, sends in a question. Says, I trade Kirk and Olave for Devontae Adams. I have Hall, Jacobs, A.J. Brown, Kupp, Mike Evans, Mixon, Deontay Johnson, Dowdle, and Tracy. Olave and Christian Kirk for Devontae Adams. Look, you'd have to hope that Devontae Adams gets traded, within this week. Like, he'd have to end up with the Jets within the next 5-6 days here. But if we can get that to happen, yes, I'll take the Devontae Adams side of that trade, because when Evan Ingram comes back, he's absolutely going to dig into the overall workload of Christian Kirk. That has been a steady overall kind of blend between Kirk and Ingram in the slot position going back to last season. And obviously Ingram is the preferred between the two based on how Doug Peterson likes to run his offenses and likes to prioritize tight ends, going back to his days as the primary play caller of course, the Philadelphia Eagles with his tenure there. So ultimately going forward, it's just a matter of is Kirk fodder? Yes. Olave versus Adams. I'd rather have Adams, assuming he ends up on another team here in the coming days. And obviously, he's going to be put to a position to where he's getting himself double-digit targets every single week. So yeah, I'll take that trade. I don't have an issue with it. I think your team looks pretty strong overall as well. Thank you. Paul Adam has sent in a super. Thank you, Paul. He says, PPR traded James Cook for Hill and Scary Terry. That's perfect. Again, James Cook might be cooked, to be honest, guys. If you are sitting here right now and you're listening, and you have an available bench spot to pick up a player, do yourselves a favor and potentially go out right now and pick up Ray Davis. Now, there is probably a likelihood that someone in your league probably already hit the waivers and picked up Ray Davis. But if that is not the case, do me a favor and go check. If he's available, let's try to pick him up. If there's someone on your bench that you're wondering, Andrew, should I drop this guy for Ray Davis? Then ask away in the live chat and let's try to get through this. But as of right now, we should absolutely be looking to pick up Ray Davis, considering the rumors that there is a turf toe injury to James Cook. He has not practiced each of the last 2 days and could end up missing multiple weeks here. In the absence, of course, Ray Davis would be the preferred running back, as he has gotten the vast majority of the rushing attempts outside of James Cook within the Buffalo Bills offense, which thus far this season, of course, is a run-first attack. All right, let's see here. Basil Abdullah had sent in a question. Thank you. He says, should I give Rico and BTJ for Achane? Okay, I could justify it. Let me see here. What do you got in terms of context? I have Kenneth Walker, Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Brooks, Hunt, Moss, Marvin Harrison, Reed, Ayuk, Cup, Waddle, Worthy, JD, and Kyler in a 10-man PPR. Also, okay, so first and foremost, let's just figure out what we want to do with this trade. Considering you're going to get considering everything in terms of your roster with the context, I'd be willing to make this trade. Okay. Is it risky? Absolutely. But depending on how your roster looks, if you can afford to wait the next couple weeks until week 8, until the expected return of Tua Tagovailoa, then yes, I think that's not a bad idea to potentially move. Now, obviously, I don't like to trade BTJ, but when you have Marvin Harrison, Reed, Cup, Waddle, Ayuk, technically you can afford to make a move of this caliber. I'd like to ship away Ayuk instead, but at this point, if not possible, I'm okay getting HN in return, considering he will certainly be a starter for your team rest of season once we get to week 8. As for rest of season tips, I mean, you should probably look to try to move Kyler. I'm assuming somebody in your league would be in service of him, but if there isn't, then you just keep it as is and keep it going. I don't think there's really anything that you need to move within this roster. Pretty strong across the board. Not sure who your tight end is, but I would assume that they're probably a good player as well. Thank you. Constantino says Kirchhoff dictionary effective list. Yeah, listen, ineffective for some reason did not come to the brain. I have no idea why that is a possibility. But for those of you who watched Wednesday's wide receiver video, for some reason, while I'm just like riffing and just improving throughout the whole video, for some reason I said effective lists instead of ineffective. I don't even know what I was thinking, but that's just, I just roll with it. I don't even care. You know what I meant. There's some context clues to at least it kind of giving you an understanding. Drop Braylon Allen. I'd be willing to drop Braylon Allen in order to pick it up. Yeah. As in Ray Davis. Let's see here. German Primetime sent in a question. Thank you, German. German says, would you trade Jerome Ford for Khalil Shakir? Absolutely, yes. Khalil Shakir is by far and away the number one receiving target of that offense, and really the only piece that Josh Allen has shown that he has a rapport enough with to comfortably throw him the ball on a consistent basis. Everyone else does not really mesh with Josh Allen within this offense. So, yeah, I'd say that there's a high proposition value with Khalil Shakir. I know he's dealing with an injury, but quite frankly, you're not going to play Ford. So might as well just ship it and look for the future. BT has sent in, so hold up, before we get there, Handle Hype had said, yeah, Braylon Allen for Ray Davis. Yeah, I don't mind it. Again, if you're going to end up being able to get a running back in Ray Davis who's going to be able to start for the next couple weeks here in the absence of a potential James Cook, then yeah, let's make that move. Somebody had said, drop Andrews for Ray Davis. I mean, if you're not playing him on Vesh, then why not? I mean, if you're not going to play Andrews, which again, I have as my number 17th ranked tight end, I could find 12 better options. I could find 15 better options that I'd rather play within the week. All right, BT had sent in a question. Said, what's up, Andrew? Really finding to get Bijan before his stock goes up. Essentially, Sanders scoring. We'll put details below. Okay, so let me just wait for the details and I'll check that out. Ishmael in the live chat said, as a James Cook manager, I had to drop the Vikings defense to pick up Ray Davis. Yeah, that's rough. Is there nothing else really that you can drop in exchange? I might just not roster a defense this week and I go pick them back up. Honestly, that might be the swap that you might have to make there, unfortunately. B for Work says, good evening, Andrew. Just wondering if I could get an early sneak peek of your week 6 kicker rankings. I have Butker on bye, searching for a kicker. Sure. Just because you asked so nicely and you did so with such class and panache, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna entertain your question. So I'm gonna read my top 12 kickers, top to bottom, as it currently stands via Patreon. Okay, so this is how I currently have it: Aubrey number 1, Younghoe Koo number 2, Chase McLaughlin number 3, Justin Tucker number 4, Kaimi Fairbairn 5, Austin Siebert 6, Cairo Santos 7, Evan McPherson 8, Braden Narvison 9, Chris Boswell 10, Eddie Pinheiro 11, and Will Lutz 12. So I would assume in your league, most likely of the available options, assuming Chase McLaughlin and Seibert are gone, Santos, Narvison, Pinheiro, Lutz, those are probably going to be the available ones for you in that circumstance. All right, let's see here. Scrolling down, we had a question from Indrajit who says, would you trade Godwin for Devontae Smith? Yeah, I mean, look, okay, this is the way I see it. I think they have very, very, very close potential value to one another. If Devontae Smith can be a more consistent touchdown threat within the offense, I'd venture to say that he potentially could be of more value. But the reason why I'm going to ever so slightly lean towards Godwin is because when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles offense, when they get down into the red zone, there are one of two players that are typically going to score. It's either going to be Saquon or it's going to be Jalen Hurts, because all they do in the red zone is run the ball. And once they get down to the goal line, there are very little opportunities for A.J. Brown, Goddard, Devontae Smith to score receiving touchdowns in the red zone. That has primarily been the effective kind of, I guess, the lacking kind of statistic that all of these Eagles options have had over the course of the last couple seasons. And we've come to live with it because they can find themselves in the end zone in different circumstances. But considering that like lack of potential red zone touchdown upside, I'd probably just ever so slightly lean in the direction of Godwin, considering how well he's played. But they're very close in terms of value in my mind. Paul Adams says, can I drop Baker or Butker for Ray? I mean, you could drop Butker. I don't think he needs to. Well, okay, look, he's coming off a great week. Don't get it twisted. But I think, what's the likelihood that someone's going to pick up Butker in this bye week? I think it's just better off to pick up Ray Davis, because he could very easily be started. Like, he's probably going to be one of my hidden gems tomorrow. Like, that's just how it's going to be. Because if he's starting against the Jets this upcoming Sunday, expect him to probably run the ball 15, 16 times. Because that's just how this offense has functioned going back to last season since they moved offensive coordinators, right? All right, so let me scroll back up. Let me go to BT's question. I'm going to try to find the context as to what he was referring to earlier. Let's go ahead and let's look this up. BT. Where is BT? Why can't I find it? What the heck? No question from BT. All I see is BTJs in the live chat. That's all I see. BT, there you go. I found it. Took me a little while. It says, my wide receivers are Higgins, DJ, as in Moore, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, Xavier Worthy, and Dontavion Wicks. My running backs are Etienne, Chuba Hubbard, Dowdle, Jacobs, Ramondre. I was thinking of giving Ramondre/Dowdle plus Higgins for him. For Bijan. You want to give 2 for 2. I'm okay, yeah. Either way. If preferably, like, at this point, honestly, you know what? I don't even have a preference. If they want Mondre and Higgins, they can have it. If they want Dowdle Higgins, they can have it. Just give me Bijan back. I'm happy with it. And your wide receiver core of DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith stays intact, and you're in a pretty strong position. And you add a top-tier running back into the overall mix. So yeah, let's make the deal. Whichever one they want, or whichever one you prefer to keep between Dowdle and Ramondre, you can keep. But yeah, I think that deal is honestly going to help you in the long term. Thank you. Alrighty, scrolling back up here. Yamidi, I don't know. I would assume that's how you pronounce it. Yamidi says, likely or Andrews. Every week, I want to hold on to one of them, stack it with Lamar. I'm out of Fab already. SMH likely seems like a better touchdown upside. I mean, look, he plays more. And thus far this season, he has just been more effective. So yeah, he would be the preferred in terms of keeping on your roster if you were going to. Let's see here. Easy E sends in a question. Says, neighbors question mark. Pick up Slayton, Cup out. Pick up Tolbert 2. Scared to start BTJ against Chicago. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're worried about it, I think picking up Slayton and Tolbert and playing them both is not a bad issue. I mean, it's not a bad problem to have at all. I think that's actually 2 great options. I don't think Tolbert is like a 1-week wonder. He's been able to produce over 10 fantasy points 3 different separate times thus far this season in a half PPR. Mainly because the Dallas Cowboys put themselves in really negative game scripts. So if we're going to see something very similar this week against Detroit, which is most likely going to happen, and considering Detroit's secondary matchup is an advantageous one, I would assume that Tolbert is a pretty locked-in top 40 wide receiver play. And if, of course, we're going to have neighbors out for another consecutive week here, we should see another relevant week from Slayton. Now, is he going to be just as good as he was last week? Probably not, but he'll still be effective with the opportunity share that he has given, double-digit targets, which should be in line considering how pass-heavy this offense is and how much they should be able to pick apart this secondary of the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, everybody has picked them apart thus far this season. So yeah, I think those are 2 great pickups if you can go ahead and get that job done. Easy. All right, scrolling back down, we had another question follow-up from Kyron Williams ACL, who says, Hawkinson for Jonathan Brooks. Also drop Braylon Allen for Anthony Richardson. I'm okay dropping Braylon Allen for Anthony Richardson. As for Hawkinson for Jonathan Brooks, understand that the way that I see it, once Hawkinson comes back and has at least like 1 week under his belt, maybe 2 weeks, from that point on, I'm going to rank him as a top 5 tight end every single week for the remainder of the season. I truly do believe amongst all tight ends in the league, he is the best tight end in football, and it will very easily show considering how competent of a quarterback Sam Darnold has been thus far and how great of an offense that has already produced to be. So as of right now, yeah, I'm leaning in the direction of potentially just keeping, unless you need the running back depth and you can wait for Jonathan Brooks to come back, whether it is next week or even the week after that. Somebody asked in the live chat, why Ray Davis over Ty Johnson? Because Ty Johnson already thus far this season really only ever gets utilized when they're in negative game scripts and as a receiving back. I'm not saying that Ray Davis is going to have the full load of the backfield to himself. There are still going to be receiving opportunities in which Ty Johnson is going to contribute, and there's going to be rushing opportunities in which he will. But as the season has progressed, it is very much so apparent that they prefer to utilize Ray Davis as the second RB in terms of rushing attempts, just purely by volume of overall opportunities they have given him. So if we just look at the numbers, the straight facts as to what we have witnessed, it's Ray Davis. Drop Thielen, yes. Emily Doyle sends in a question. Thank you, Emily. Says drop Rachaad White for Ray Davis. No, I wouldn't go as far as that. I have Cook. Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as that because I'd still think that Rachaad White is a weekly play every single week. Now, the thing is, Rachaad White dealing with a little bit of an issue, an injury this week. There's a possibility by tomorrow he may end up on the out list, and then you could put him on your IR, then pick up Ray Davis for free. But I wouldn't go as far as to pick up Rachaad White as of right now. It would require, like, if someone had told me, like, oh, James Cook is going to the IR, then I'd be like, okay, maybe we can have a conversation. But until then, no, I don't think that's worth the drop. Drop Tyjae Spears for Ray Davis. Again, if you're not going to play Tyjae Spears, which I would probably venture to say, David, you're not going to, I think Ray Davis is a solid pickup because, again, in the absence of James Cook, he would be a top 20 option at running back. That is a given. All right, let's see here. Would you start Wicks or Bigsby? It depends on format, and I think it depends on ETN's health, along with Dobbs and Christian Watson and Musgrave. But I think that's more of a question for, like, once we know the designations of the injuries and whether or not some of these prospects are going to play going into this upcoming weekend based on tomorrow's practice line, I think we'll get a clearer picture on that circumstance. Anthony O sends in a question. Thank you, Anthony. Says, I'm in a 12-team full PPR. I'm benching Josh Allen and Kincaid to start Caleb Williams and Tucker Kraft. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. I have DJ Moore, very well. AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, wide receivers, and I think you're good to go. Listen, I have no issue playing Caleb Williams. By effective matchup, he should dominate the Jacksonville Jaguars. The only reason I ever have any hesitation going into this kind of a circumstance is purely London. That is it. London games typically aren't the greatest. They're sometimes just out of whack. There's a reason why Sam Darnold can go to London and throw for 0 touchdowns and have the worst game of his season thus far. Besides the fact that he was taking on the Jets, I mean, that they had that game in control. 3 turnovers gives him the opportunity. Still, they fall apart as an offense. Injuries, all these kind of uncertainties. Either way, it's a weird game, but if you want to play him, I don't have an issue with that. I think your team as a whole is extremely strong, and you'll win regardless of who you choose to play at quarterback in this circumstance, Anthony. But yeah, I do prefer Tucker over Kincaid, so thank you. All right, let's see. Can I drop Algier? No, you can't drop Algier. Bijan popped up on the injury report today with a hamstring injury, so I would not drop Algier. Drop Madison for Ray Davis. Considering Aaron Jones' injury doesn't seem as significant as it could have potentially been, which is obviously great for us, I would say that, yes, you can make that swap. Why Ray Davis? Yeah, okay, we already answered that question. We're good to go. D. Hundo sends in a question. Says, just traded Chuba Hubbard for Garrett Wilson. Beautiful. Love it. Roster Fields, Brees, Kamara, A.J. Brown, Debo, Olave, Reed, Laporta, Cooper. Okay, yeah, so, I mean, look, you have a lot of receivers. So let's hope you're in a multi-flex league to where you can start A.J., Debo, Reed, and Wilson every week. But if you cannot, then obviously another trade may be in the works going forward here in order to try to improve your quarterback or potentially one of your running backs, assuming, Brees Hall cannot continue to at least provide some sort of value for our fantasy team. All right, let's see here. M. Suna sends it, M. Suna says, Love, Cook, ETN, BTJ, DJ, McBride, Tank, Amon-Ra St. Brown with Aaron Jones plus Achane on the bye. I'm 1-4 in a 10-team league. I'm in a half PPR. How's my team look for the rest of season? I mean, in terms of overall team, right? When we talk about Achane, Aaron Jones at a full capacity, with James Cook at a full capacity strong. But unfortunately, Cook is a little bit banged up. Etienne's banged up. Aaron Jones is banged up. HN doesn't have Tua. So your running backs are kind of in shambles right now. As for your wide receiver core, BTJ, DJ Moore, solid. You have Tank Dell, who hopefully is going to have himself, an uptick of production. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have McBride. You have Love. Like, all of your pieces outside of running back are great. Like, if your running backs were healthy, I wouldn't even blink. But considering you're 1-4 and you also have to deal with these running back injuries, like, I might be even looking to try to move one of these. Like, I might move Achane if you don't think you can survive. Like, it's a 10-team league, right? So if 6 teams make the playoffs, you'll need like 7 wins to make the playoffs, probably 7 or 8. You can get there, but you're just going to have to desperately hope that you have no injury problems once you get to like week 7 and beyond. And you have to really try to, your bye weeks are going to come later in the year, but you have to, well, not really. You have DJ on week 7. Ooh, man. You're just going to have to hope and pray that you can juke and jab and not really take any more injuries. Let's see here. Ali sent in a question. Says, full PPR. Feeling like my team is falling off. My quarterback are Daniels and Stroud. If you have Jaden Daniels, you're not really falling off so far. Okay, looking good. Achane, Gibbs, Hunt, Singletary, Tracy, Sermon, Bucky. Okay, so as for running back, right? Gibbs, probably top 6 at the in terms of rest of the season. Once we get Achane Tua back, Achane's probably top 5 rest of the season. Hunt will survive or at least keep you afloat until then. Singletary looks like he's probably going to play this week. Sermon could probably give you another week of production. Bucky may end up being the starter this week because of Rashad White's injury. Garrett Wilson, Tank Dell, Leggett, Cup. Really, your whole situation here, Ali, is just waiting for your players to get back to being relevant. I don't know if it's really fallen off more than they've just, unfortunately, have to dealt with so many injuries. Like, if Achane doesn't lose Tua, Achane's probably the number 1 scorer at the running back position thus far. If Kupp doesn't get injured, he's probably the number 1 wide receiver at the position thus far. Like, there is a lot of circumstance where if we just avoid those injuries, you're in a far better position. Now, thus far, obviously, you've probably struggled, but honestly, going forward, I don't really see an issue with your team. I think once you get those players back at a full capacity, you're going to be in a really strong position. All right, scrolling back up, let's see here. After Ali's question, I have to actually just change this because my YouTube just crashed. All right, we had a question that came in from Jay Bakes Cakes. There you go. Says the following. In a 12-team PPR, we have Daniels, Jones, Taylor, Jacobs, Evans, Tyreek, McBride, Amari, Juju, Dowdle, Tolbert, Sermon. Trade Tyreek Hill and Dowdle for JJ. Yes, I'm willing to do so. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Again, it's just a matter of like, are you trying to get out of the Tua Tagovailoa sweepstakes? Like, if you're just trying to avoid that risk, absolutely. I would 100% take JJ in this circumstance. No problem at all. Julian sends in a question, says, who to play in the flex? Mike Evans, Tony Pollard, Wando Robinson. Yeah, it's going to be Tony Pollard for me. Again, they play against the Colts. The Colts cannot stop a soul on their defensive side of the field. On the ground, through the air, they've just been a turnstile the whole season. So, quite frankly, Tony Pollard is just the best play. Getting himself 19-plus touches 3 of the last 4 games, coming off of the bye week, fully healthy, ready to go. I think that's just the easy play in order to avoid, Mike Hilton covering Wando Robinson for majority of the game, and, of course, Marshawn Lattimore covering Mike Evans for majority of that game. I have Reed, Terry, Kamara, Montgomery. Yeah, you're good to go. Pollard will be the play there, Julian. Thank you. Daniel Barnes sends in a question. Thank you, Daniel. 1 point per reception, pick up Ray Davis or Bigsby. Listen, if James, okay, the way that I've read it, if it's as bad as we anticipate, and if it is in fact a turf toe, there is a chance that James Cook could play. He puts like I'm trying to remember what the actual terminology is. I remember a couple years back, Josh Jacobs and Najee Harris played with some sort of like turf toe injury where they put like a metal actual rod in their shoe. Again, it's all pain management. Ultimately, I would assume that they hold him out. There's a reason why he hasn't practiced. In terms of long-term value, Bigsby's more valuable. But in terms of like helping you win now, again, if Cook is not going to be able to play, then Davis is the guy. Christopher Franco says, hey, Andrew, trade Ford, Chubb, and Tolbert for Etienne and Addison. Yeah, I take that trade. That's fine by me. I'd rather have Etienne and Addison side. Thank you. Nick L sends in a question, says, hey, bro, pick 2. Higgins, McLaurin, Flowers, Marvin Harrison, Reed. Between those available options, my 2 highest ranked as of right now, based on Wednesday's video and earlier today's Patreon rankings, would be Reed and Higgins. but sitting Flowers, McLaurin, Marvin Harrison doesn't make me feel great. Honestly, if I was in your position, I'd take Marvin Harrison. Sorry, not Marvin. Yeah, I mean, you could take Marvin Harrison, McLaurin, Flowers, take 2 of the 3, and just go trade for Jamar Chase. Or, take 2 of the 3 and go after Amon-Ra. Just give yourself better players. You have too much depth to where if you can only start 2 of these 5 every week, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. I'd rather just get all of their value and congregate it into one singular trade and just get one singular player back that I can start without a doubt every week. And considering a player like Amon-Ra has already surpassed his bye week and he's a tough son of a gun, I'd rather just have him rather than like McLaurin, Flowers rest season, assuming that's an available option. Thank you. Akuma187 says, hey, Andrew, asking gracefully. Full PPR. Team is in the chat. Should I target? Oh, man, that's good. That's good. Should I target Hall or Bijan Robinson? I'd rather target Bijan Robinson. I think the offense is just more potent, ultimately, overall. Mixon injury is killing me. Mixon practiced today. I mean, he participated. I don't know about practice, but still. Or pick up Gibson or Ray Davis. I mean, still, I think it's probably a good idea to pick up Ray Davis regardless, and then should be targeting Bijan in this circumstance. And let me go ahead and go to the live chat, Akuma, and see what you got. Akuma. Yeah, so once you had typed this, that was so long ago that it's not even in the live chat anymore, Akuma. So just do me a favor and type in the live chat, and I'll get to it. Thank you. All right, while we wait until that to be typed in or copy-pasted, whichever way it goes about, we move on to Chris Foy. Chris, thank you. Says, in a full PPR, thoughts. My lineup consists of Jaden Daniels, okay, James Cook, Breece Hall, Jaden Reed, St. Brown, McBride, Marvin Harrison, Aubrey, yep, great. Bench consists of Ayuk, Josh Allen, Nico Collins, Jonathan Brooks, Tony Pollard, Deontay Johnson. Trade Harrison and Pollard for Hill. I think at that point you're giving up too much. There's too much inherent risk there. I'd rather give Harrison and Pollard for like a Justin Jefferson or a CeeDee Lamb or somebody that doesn't have a quarterback that if he gets absolutely just, if he falls down the wrong way, Tua's career could be over. Like if he hit whiplashes the wrong way, it's done. So considering all of the potential risk involved and the player value that you are providing with Pollard and Harrison for the remainder of the season, I'd rather just go after a player that I know. I mean, honestly, at this point, yeah, if I can go after an Amon-Ra, a Lamb, a Chase, an A.J. Brown, I'd rather venture those potential paths rather than the Tyreek Hill path that is set forth as of this current situation. Now, as for the strength of your team, again, you and I both know you've got a really strong team. Just pick up Ray Davis and you're fine. Cinco2X sends in a question, says, drop Charbonnet for Davis? Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Again, Charbonnet is only just a handcuff. I mean, he doesn't really have individualized value outside of just a potential Kenneth Walker injury, which of course we're going to hope doesn't ever exist again for the remainder of the season. Obviously, we can't predict these things. Injuries come and go, and that is just how the season's theme has been. So being prepared is obviously something that we want to do, but in your circumstance, being able to recoup the value of Cook in case he misses some time here with Davis is certainly a priority. All right, let's see here. Let me go back into the live chat, see if Akuma has sent in anything so that I can get to that. Akuma says, in a 10-team full PPR, no tight end spot, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex. Okay, we have Love, Mixon, Dobbins, Brian Robinson, Dowdle, Tracy, Lamb, Evans, Olave, Terry, and Waddle. Okay, so with the context of this team, let me copy this and let me go ahead and paste it into a notepad just so I have it referenced, and then I can go back to your initial question here. So, Akuma, you had said, should I target Breece or Bijan? Yeah. So look, at this point, if you can somehow, some way cash in on Bijan Robinson low right now, then you should absolutely do so. How you would be able to acquire that would be probably trading away a running back in exchange. So if Brian Robinson Jr. has to be the fodder along with a Dowdle, Dobbins, whatever it ends up having to be, let's move those players in pieces. I doubt that they'd want Mixon because, again, he's missed so much time, and I know it's killed you, but again, you're probably in the position to where you're moving a Brian Robinson along with potentially, another running back, 2 running backs, or maybe a running back and a wide receiver combo, and if you can go get Bijan for it, I'd absolutely be pretty happy about that if you can get that done. And yes, let's, in terms of like making any swaps to pick up the Ray Davis, I don't know who I would drop off your team. At this point, it might be Tracy, but that's only under the assumption that Singletary even plays this week. Otherwise, I'd just roll with Tracy. Thank you. Lenny V23 sends in a question. Thank you, Lenny. Says, I got Kyler, Marvin Harrison, Montgomery, Brian Robinson, and trade away Stroud, Kyron, wait. And trade away Stroud, Kyron, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, What are your thoughts? I get Kyler, Harrison, Montgomery. Okay, so let's just put this at a 1-for-1, okay? Kyler and Stroud, I think they have comparable value. Slightly prefer Kyler because of the rushing upside and the Nico Collins recent injury, but again, not enough to where I'm like, you have to go one way over the other. Then if we talk about like Terry McLaurin and Harrison Jr., very similar value as it currently stands. Kyron Williams, significantly higher potential upside prospect than a Montgomery. And then Garrett, you know, honestly, if you're playing in a full PPR circumstance here, I'll take the Kyron side of this overall deal. Now, if you're playing in a half PPR, I'll justify the other side. That's just literally the way I'll go about it. Because you're getting more wide receiver depth in that other side of the deal, and the PPR format would really significantly bump their value, that's the only reason I'd make that move in that circumstance. Raider sends in a question, says, hey, Andrew, thanks for the underdog picks tonight. Yeah, listen, everybody, let's take a moment to thank Jordan Mason for coming in clutch. He had no business saving us tonight, but he came back into the game, ran for an additional 1 rushing attempt in the second half for 8 yards, and did everybody a favor, helped us cash the play of the day via the quarterback and tight ends video that was posted today. Again, we're continuing the hot streak. It's not slowing down. And of course, tomorrow at the end of the Hidden Gems episode, I'll continue to provide more plays for you guys to, of course, continue to hit this week. Thank you. All right, so let's see the rest of your question here, Raider. Do you have separate videos for prop picks? No, I don't. Or different place you post your picks? Honestly, I share them every week via videos or live streams. So like last week in Hidden Gems, and then on Friday live stream, Saturday live stream, Sunday live stream, I showed everything. So like we made a lot of money last week, and I had no business making that much, but all those were shared. They were all public. Everybody had seen them. So if you go through the live streams, or at least like whether you're live to watch them, if you just go through them and kind of like fast forward after the fact, after they're posted onto the channel, you could probably go find the picks over the course of a week. And at that point, just follow or potentially just take a couple ideas out of them and then just roll with your own. But do I specifically post them somewhere? No. Again, I spend a lot of time just trying to win fantasy leagues. The idea of putting in pick'em entries is more of a side entertainment factor for me. Do I end up winning a lot of money? Yes, but that's a byproduct of the commitment of just knowing fantasy football and all the research I do. HBK Dom says, would you start Bateman, Quentin Johnston, or Keon Coleman this week? If Shakir is out, I probably play Keon Coleman, then Quentin Johnston, then Bateman. The only reason Bateman is last on that list is because he's dealing with an injury himself. Now, if we were to get a full healthy designation by tomorrow, I'll then just roll Bateman because I think it's going to be a high-scoring event against Washington, and the advantageous matchup will be a little bit too much to pass up on. So yeah, I'd go with Bateman if he's healthy by tomorrow. A real DYL says, 12-man, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league, 6 point per passing touchdown PPR. We have Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Neighbors, Ayuk, Jacobs, Jones, Muth, Shakir, Waddle, Chubb, Ford, Braylon Allen, Emmanuel Wilson. Any moves? I mean, look, in terms of your bench, like Ford, Chubb, Braylon Allen, Emmanuel Wilson, they're just kind of like, in case of emergency, break glass and utilize them. Until you get Waddle back, I mean, at this point, there's not really much you can do to move. You can theoretically try to trade Aaron Jones. I'd be happy to get Tony Pollard in exchange if you can make them, something like that exist or come out of nowhere. But outside of that, I don't think I really have any moves for you to specifically make. Obviously, I'd like to try to get a more consistent tight end out of, trading Muth with somebody else in order to improve upon that. But I'm not going to utilize Waddle in that circumstance. I could consider the venture of Ayuk with Muth, but you'd have to wait until Waddle comes back by week 8, and then and only then can you potentially make a pivoting option in that circumstance. Thank you. Corey Miller says, if Cook misses, do I play Bucky, Irving, Braylon Allen, or Ray Davis? It depends, right? If Rachaad White misses, Bucky plays above all of them. But if Rachaad White plays, then you would play Ray Davis. Brian Thomas Jr. has a tough matchup, absolutely. Or Olave, trust the Rattlesnake Rattler. I don't know about Rattler. I don't watch enough college football to be able to tell you if this guy is going to be an immediate success in the NFL to where I can trust Olave within the given week. So, I mean, again, it's kind of a toss-up. In my opinion, the way that I have it positioned, I just rather play the hot hand of Brian Thomas rather than try to hope that a rookie can get thrown into the fire and be baptized against, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and still be relevant. It's going to be tough. Bradshaw says Daniel Jones or Caleb Williams. Again, if Neighbors doesn't play, I'll just rather play Caleb Williams at that point. I'd be pretty comfortable with that. Drop Gibson in order to pick up Ray Davis? Yes, thank you. Let's see here. Yamadi says drop Brooks for Algier in case of lingering hammy. I don't know if I want to drop. I mean, look, Brooks should sit in your IR spot. If you don't have an IR spot in your league, please call your commissioner and say, "What do you?" I was gonna start ripping off some. Anyway, ask them, "Hey, why don't you consider adding an IR to our league? There's so many injuries this year. Wouldn't it help all of us? So maybe ask them nicely and see if they'll oblige your request. If they don't." If you have Bijan, I could justify it, but ultimately, I'd rather just have all notifications on, and if anything happens, you make the swap immediately. Well, actually, no, it's probably just smarter to have Algier. If Brooks is your fifth or sixth best running back, then sure. But otherwise, you guys got to have an IR spot in 2024. Fizzin sends in a question, and he says the following. He, she, they, I don't know. Fizzin says, trade Marvin Harrison Jr. and Bucky for DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill. Marvin Harrison and Bucky for those two? Yes. Give me DJ Moore and Tyreek Hill 10 times out of 10. Not even close. Thank you. Fibonacci sends in a question. Says, trade Neighbors for Debo, Cup, and Cook? Yeah. Yeah. I'll take Debo, Cup, and Cook rest of the season. Thank you. I don't know who's offering you that, Fibonacci, but yeah. Shake their hand, kiss them on the forehead, and say thank you very much and get the fuck out of there. Rogo sends in a question. Says, picked up Tolbert, but now Devontae Smith's on the... What? Devontae Smith in waivers? What to do? I'm so confused. If I was playing in a fantasy football league and somebody had dropped Devontae Smith, I would know that was an accident. It was an accident. So if I was the commissioner of that league, I would pick up the player and put it back on the team for them in order to just make sure that they don't make that mistake. Even if it was playing for actual serious money, I would, because that's got to be a mistake. There's no actual person in their right mind that would drop Devontae Smith. So, I mean, if you guys play with no holds barred, no forgiveness, no mistake kind of recovery system, then yeah, you're picking up Devontae Smith and you're dropping all of the fab. Unload the entire clip. If you have number one priority, that's the pickup. Immediate. Thank you. Nick LaRosa sends in a question. Says, Jamison Williams or Ladd McConkey, who you starting? I'd rather start Ladd McConkey this week. Thank you. Lou sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 3-2 in a full PPR. Flex. We have Murray, Hubbard, Bijan, Moore, Pickens, Mixon, Kincaid. My bench is Baker, Algier, Gibson, Schultz, Mostert, Shakir, Nakua. Okay, cool. Should I be making trades? I mean, honestly, I don't think you can make trades. If you're going to make a trade, you're trading away Hubbard. And you're trying to get back any sort of running back value that you can. Because, again, Hubbard, yes, has been incredibly... I mean, he's played far better than I would have potentially expected. This is the best Hubbard's looked at his entire career, and it's not even remotely close. So, eventually, Jonathan Brooks does return. That definitely will impact Hubbard's overall upside for success. It doesn't mean that he'll disappear. It doesn't mean that he has to relinquish his number one spot. It just means that he will be a lesser option. So I'd rather sell high on the idea that someone might be, oh, hey, you want this 20-point per week running back? Yeah, great. Let me go ahead and let me have this running back of yours by the name of Tony Pollard that may not be performing, I'm gonna be honest, Tony Pollard's 20 points per week. So maybe that's a little bit of a trickier potential purchase. But if you're 3-2 at this current point, looking at the team, I was going to say maybe we go after Achane, but can you afford to lose 2 games here? I don't think so. Especially if Mixon doesn't play this week, it'd be pretty tough. So unless you can move Hubbard for a player that can immediately make an impact at running back, then it's a buy low. Maybe you go after Breece Hall. Outside of that, you kind of hold and you just wait until the return of Nakua. Thank you. Joey Reed says, should I trade Tyreek Hill for Brian Robinson and Pacheco? I'd rather have Brian Robinson. I'd rather have Tyreek Hill, honestly. Now, if you're in the position where you need a running back and you're super desperate, you're 1-4, 0-5, and you need to start winning now, then I could justify it. But ultimately, Pacheco is a long-term move. So if I'm not going to get Pacheco till week 11, and again, it's only week 6, and there's 6 games between now and then, in terms of matchups, I'd rather just have the Tyreek Hill side because I think in the long term, it will just pan out in my favor a little bit more. But I could justify the Brian Robinson sign if, again, you're desperate need of a running back currently exists. Alex, number 8, says PPR, pick up Tolbert or Downs? Considering the Michael Pittman Jr. injury, I'd rather have Downs. Thank you. Yabadi says, drop Fields for Algier. Fields last round keeper. I mean, if it's a keeper league and you plan on keeping him for the future, then you wouldn't drop him, right? But if that's not even your starting quarterback and there's somebody else that you start every single week, like a Jordan Love or a Jaden Daniels, etc., then I don't mind the swap just to ensure that you don't have any risk from Bijan. Because again, hamstrings are something that you don't really want to mess with. And once it gets tweaked once, there's always the potential of a re-aggravation. Let's see here. Shubes sends in a question. Says, I have Mason, JT, Mixon, Cook, and Achane. What now? Pray. No, honestly, if I was in your position, I'm making trades immediately. We got to get these guys off this team. Like if JT's not going to play this week, like you have to move him. Mixon, if he's not going to play this week, you have to move him. Achane, got to move him. If you're sitting in a position where you are 1-4, 0-5, they have to all be traded this week. I'm not even exaggerating. All of them. You have to start securing wins. Otherwise, if you lose this week and you're 1-4, you go to 1-5. 8 teams make the playoffs in a 12-team 6 teams make the playoffs in a 12-team format. You need 8 wins in fantasy in that circumstance. In order to get 8 wins, you're going to have to win 7 of the last 9 games of the regular season. Like trades are going to have to happen. So you're in the buy low position of like going after players that you could possibly get. Gibbs, Montgomery, they've already passed their bye week. Maybe we go after them. Stuff like that. Thank you. David Diaz sends in a question, says start 2, Ramondre, Rashad, Singletary, or Javonte. I think that is 100% dependent on who's healthy. Let's say, for example, they're all healthy this week. Singletary plays alongside of Rashad White. If they are not all healthy and Singletary and Rashad White miss this week, then of course you have your answer with Javonte, Ramondre. But that's the way I go about it. I want to play Rashad White and Singletary if they are active. If not, Javonte just ahead of Ramondre ever so slightly. AJ sends in a question, says drop Braylon Allen for Davis. Yes. Have Brian Robinson, Bucky, Hall, and Najee. Yeah, having Hall makes it a little bit tricky, but again, considering you could theoretically pick up Davis and play him in the upcoming week is intriguing enough to me for where I take the risk. I mean, it may not even just be for the week. It may be for multi-weeks, you know? The real Franklin had sent in a question. Let me go ahead and see if I can find that in the chat, Franklin. The real... All right, maybe... Says, trade away Chubb for Puka. Yes, W, absolutely. It's not even close. I don't understand who you guys play with in your leagues to where you can theoretically trade away Chubb for Puka. I don't understand it. I will never understand it. But yes, absolutely take advantage of it. Let's see here. I don't even know if I can pronounce this name. Wadiyada Kin. Okay, whatever. 3-2. Thank you very much, Wadi. Says, I'm 30-2 currently. I got Kyler, Reed, Gibbs, Kincaid. Locked in, had Mason and DK tonight. Yeah, that's tragic. Especially with Mason injury. DK called back touchdown. That's rough. And my opponent had nobody who had... would you go with Harrison Jr. or Jacobs this week? What's your scoring format, Wadi? Include that. Thank you. The commissioner is the one who dropped him. LMAO. Oh, Rogo. Your commissioner's a... okay, sorry. Your commissioner should know better. But if they don't, then so be it. Jack sends in a question. Says, I have Singletary, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, Tank Bigsby, Trey Sermon, James Cook, Jets defense, along with Broncos. Who do I drop for Ray Davis and Tyler Algier? I mean, look, in terms of the circumstance that you're in, Trey Sermon and Tank Bigsby would be the guys. But considering you don't have Bijan, I don't think you need to pick up Tyler Algier unless you like really wanted to. I'd probably just drop Sermon for Ray Davis and just leave it at that. But if you were like, uber kind of, I don't know, excited about Algier for some reason, then I'd say, okay, sure, we can drop Bigsby for him, but I don't really like it. Zach Kane sends in a question, says, I'm 4-1 in a PPR, pick 3, Eckler, Wicks, Najee, Ridley, Lazard. In a full PPR, I think it's... I'd probably go Ridley. Okay, I'd say it's a little bit early. mainly because it's Thursday and I don't know what the practice report is going to say regarding the entire Green Bay offense, because again, Watson's availability certainly impacts Wicks. So let's just say for now, Ridley, Eckler, and Najee. But if in fact we have no Watson and there's no Musgrave, or if there's something of that nature, it'd probably go with like Ridley, Eckler, and Wicks at that point. Thank you. All right, let's see here. I needed to go back and figure out the scoring format of Wadi. Let's see here. Control F, Wadi. It says PPR. Beautiful. Thank you. So in the context of your team, in a full PPR, if Jair Alexander's active, I don't play Marvin Harrison. If he isn't active and he's out, I'd play Marvin Harrison there. It's going to be a determining factor on the coverage. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on. We had a question that came in from Celerus, who says, I'm 4-1 currently in a half PPR. 2 flex league. We have Dak, Bijan, Brees, Ayuk, Moore, Wilson, Lamb, Bowers, Braylon, Allen, Algier, Adunze, McConkey, Dell. Any moves? I mean, look, as a team as a whole, Bijan, Brees don't need a move. Neither do, again, Lamb, Moore, Ayuk, Garrett Wilson, Bowers. Really, at this point, you don't have to move anything. It's a double flex league. They give you the depth you require. Unless you're going to make a trade in which you're giving away DJ Moore and you're getting back a better wide receiver in exchange, or Garrett Wilson and you're getting back a better, like if you move Garrett Wilson and someone gives you AJ Brown, beautiful, fantastic, we'll take it. But unless something like that exists, you're going to have to wait until Adunze, McConkey, or Dell do something on your bench at a higher level, to where then at that point you can kind of, based off of that performance, sell them higher with one of your wide receivers. So you would take, theoretically, like let's say Dell goes off this week and you're like, all right, I'd like to move him because eventually Nico comes back. You take Dell, you take him with Ayuk, and you go swap it for a wide receiver, and then we continue on as such. But outside of that, until McConkey, Dell, Adunze do something on your bench, we'd hold as such. Thank you. Renee Garza says, pick 2 flex. We have Pickens, Downs, Madison, Hutchinson. Thanks. I'm assuming Hutchinson is the wide receiver for the Texans. That's why you mentioned him. But as of right now, not really interested in playing him. I will play Pickens and Downs. Thank you. Octavio sends in a question. Says, weekly team question. LOL. Yeah, weekly team question. 10 team. We have Allen, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, Gibbs, Hall, Goddard, Flowers. Bench consists of Kraft, Bucky, Wicks, Waddle, Braylon, Dowdle, and Brooks. Any suggestions? Marvin Harrison, Allen, Neighbors. Okay, so let's hope that Neighbors is healthy. If he's not, it's fine. We're going to keep holding on to him. Gibbs, Hall, Goddard, Flowers, beautiful. Kraft is on the bench. If I was in your position, Octavio, I'm trying to, right now, sell Kraft as quickly as I can. Now, do I have Kraft ranked ahead of Goddard? Absolutely. But I think it's a very good time that if someone doesn't want to take Goddard because, again, they like, oh, well, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are coming back, fine. I could start Goddard for the rest of the year very happily as a top 12 option. But Kraft is someone that you might want to potentially, based off of his most recent production of 15 and 20 plus fantasy points, move him accordingly. So you take him, you take Dowdle, and you go make an upgrade at a potential running back of sorts, Tony Pollard. I'm going to keep saying it. Guys, there are names every week that I continue to bring up, and I know it's hard to trade for some of these guys. Like earlier this week was Debo. I know it's difficult to trade for a player like that. But these are the guys that are going to just have continued success for the remainder of the season, so that I'm so confident in that I do whatever I can to potentially try to trade for them. But outside of that, until you move one of those options, Waddle stays on your bench until further notice. You have a 3-2 record, so you can survive. Bucky kind of sits in that position. Maybe you can proxy a potential situation in which if Rashad White is the missed time, Bucky Irving could be a more valuable prospect that you can move via trade, but that's the only idea that I currently have. Fainsky sends in a question. Fainsky says, I'm 2-3 in a 12-team full PPR. In this circumstance, do I trade away my Burrow to a Chase owner for Anthony Richardson and BTJ? I could pick up T-Law, Daniel Jones, Nix, Herbert. I'm hurting at wide receiver with Neighbors and Cup. Yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable making that move. Look, I think you can easily survive by going out and you pick up Daniel Jones. You have Anthony Richardson and him. With BTJ in the long term, I think it'll probably serve you well considering the wide receiver hurt that you're in. Once Neighbors and Cup are healthy and back, BTJ could even be moved after the fact for another potential piece, but ultimately, otherwise, he starts for your team for the remainder of the season, considering how well he's played thus far. Now, this is what I'm going to say. You're dealing with these issues now, just for context, okay? If you were going to make this trade, BTJ technically is a long-term player, right? He's going to be hopefully healthy for the remainder of the season. But when you trade for him for this week, understand the context of what you were getting out of BTJ. He's playing against Chicago. Chicago has lit up every single number one wide receiver. Jalen Johnson, their number one cornerback, does not fuck around. He is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So there's a reason why they gave him his bag last year. There's a reason why he continues to dominate. Like, he is going to probably lock down BTJ this week. If I had to pick one way or the other, most likely than not, he locks down BTJ. Now, obviously, we play the game for a reason. He could always be outdone by BTJ. But if you're trying to like make this trade for a 1 week fix, it's not the play. But if we're picking it up for long-term service of having another wide receiver on roster, then cool. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Just as long as we're on the same page there, Fainsky. Justo11 says, my friend is looking to trade JJ. I have Drake, Montgomery, Pollard, Kelsey, Cup, Kelsey, Pittman. Okay, so we have two Kelseys, huh? We have Jason and Travis, huh? Who do I move? Yeah, look, I think it's very much so dependent on what they would need in return. If they need a wide receiver in return, you send them back Drake London. And you say, hey, listen, 1-for-1, this is what I can do. Outside of that, you could also offer Drake London and Pittman and try to go with that trade. If they are not interested in that combination, then you can offer Cup and Pittman. Outside of that, that's pretty much it, because I'm not willing to overspend for JJ. I'm only willing to go after JJ, assuming they're going to want a wide receiver in exchange, by giving one of your wide receivers with Pittman. So Drake, Pittman, or Cup and Pittman. And that's it. That's as far as I'll go, Justo. Thank you. JK sends in a question, says, is Gibbs for more a fair trade? I would rather have Gibbs rest the season. Is it technically a fair trade? I mean, no, I would rather have more out of Gibbs. Like, the way that I value Gibbs rest of season, based on what he's going to do this week and further on, I need AJ Brown in return. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, it's going to be that level of production that I'm anticipating. Now, if Gibbs continues to be like in a full PPR, let me see here. I think he's like 18 points per game, something like that. Let me check. Just for the context sake. Let's go here. Control. Okay, Gibbs. So thus far this season, averaging 17.8 fantasy points per game, right? So 18 points per game. So if I'm going to trade away the caliber of Jameer, and I think he's only going to ascend going forward after the bye, and he's maybe going to get to that 20-point range. Again, I want a 20-point player back. I'd like an AJ Brown. I'd like a CeeDee Lamb. I'd like an Amon-Ra. Like, that's what I want in exchange. So is it fair? No, I think you should be able to get more out of Gibbs than just DJ Moore, ultimately. Werwer01 says, should I trade Kyron and Rome Odunze for Hall and Reed? If that wide receiver depth on your team is in shambles and Reed is really going to help bring it together, then yes, absolutely. Because in my opinion, because Rome is a kind of, you have to give him time. Like, there's nothing that says that Rome breaks out this year, except for the fact that he was a top 10 wide receiver. So it doesn't mean that Rome has to break out tomorrow. He could break out in week 14 and then be an absolute stud from there on. So until then, Rome is just trade fodder. It's Kyron for Hall and Reed. And honestly, I'm okay with the Hall Reed scenario, under the assumption that, again, that Reed piece really helps bring in your wide receiver core to an actual respectable state. We had a question from, let's see here, I missed it. Vic84. Vic says the following. Two questions, so I'll get all the context. Vic says I'm 1-4 in a full PPR. I have Jaden Daniels, Burrow. Okay, cool. So we're trading Burrow, right? Deontay Johnson, Pittman. Okay, we're going to also trade Deontay Johnson, Pittman. Kamara, Pollard, Ferguson, Connor, Hall. Okay, T. Higgins, Adunze, Laporta, Dell. Wow, okay. Nakua, Brooks on the IR. I'm good rest of the season, right? I mean, look, at this point, in terms of running back depth, Kamara, Pollard, Connor, Hall, pretty solid, to say the very least. You have Laporta, which you're great with. You have Jaden Daniels, Burrow. And then at wide receiver, you have T. Higgins, Dell, Nakua, Pittman, and Deontay Johnson. I'd say that you're in a pretty good spot as of right now. Now, again, I prefer to trade Pittman, but now that he's injured, it's obviously a little bit different. Deontay Johnson, I think, is still a tradable piece, but until Nakua comes back, you'd hold on to him until further notice, because, again, we need to wait until about week 8 for Nakua to be at a full capacity. Thank you, Vic. Thank you. Moving on to a question that came in from Lou. Says, do you full-time job or YouTube millionaire? YouTube millionaire? Listen, I don't know what context you have for what it requires to be a YouTube millionaire. I can tell you that, listen, having a channel with 90,000 subscribers, and all the support that you guys continue to show me on a daily basis, it allows me to do this full time, but there's no such thing as a millionaire in this conversation that is looking directly at the camera. There's no millionaire over here. I'd love that though. That would be great. If somebody, one of you hits the lotto and wants to hire me full time to run your fantasy teams for $1 million a year, listen, sign me up, make a call, send me an email, and we'll set that up. But yeah, this is my full time job. I got to grind every day, and I enjoy it. Thank you. Jorge Gonzalez sends in a question. Thank you, Jorge. Says start 2 in a full PPR. Terry McLaurin, Evans, or Chris Olave. If I'm starting 2 of those 3, Terry McLaurin has to play. That's the given. So now it's just a matter of, do I want to play Mike Evans versus Lattimore or Chris Olave without Derek Carr? Which honestly, between the two of them, I'd probably rather play Chris Olave. Thank you. Lethal Jake sends in a question. Says, in a PPR, I'm currently 4-1. I sent off these bench pieces, Brian Robinson Jr. plus Zach Moss plus Goddard, and I got Achane plus Kyle Pitts plus Corum. Thoughts? Okay, so you sent away Brian Robinson, Zach Moss, and Goddard, and you got back Achane, Kyle Pitts, and Corum. Okay, I mean, I don't love it, but I can see the vision, we can get there. Thoughts? Wasn't concerned about tight end. Okay, yeah. Wanted Achane, yeah, which I think is fine. Yeah, look, let's say, for example, okay, theoretically speaking, Achane never had Tua disappear. You would never be able to trade Brian Robinson and Zach Moss for him. No one would give you Achane in exchange. So the fact that you're able to get Achane now, based on the doubt, the uncertainty of the Dolphins situation, is where you're able to really cash in. So at this point, you're in a fantastic position to where you've made a trade to where it's kind of set up your running back position for the future, and your 4-1 record really does give you the stability to be able to even tank a couple losses here in the meanwhile until Achane returns. And once he's back, Cook, Montgomery, etc., those are your studs, and you're going to be able to ride it out with a pretty good position there. Thank you. Says, well, yeah, I say well done. If Cook doesn't start, who is playing? Or if he doesn't play, who's starting? It would be Ray Davis. Jacob T says, Rashad White or Darnell Mooney in the flex? I'd rather play Darnell Mooney in the flex. Half PPR, full PPR. With Rashad White's injury, I think there may be a less of, like, even if he does play, there may be a lesser potential option of him. Like, he may just play less snaps, because if they blow out the Saints, it's going to be Bucky in the second half, right? Let's see here. Big Gio Gomez says, like always, great content. Or thank you very much. Great content. I offered a trade to my 0-5 commissioner. I'm 4-1. What's your trade, though? Let me see here. Big Gio. Yeah, nothing in the chat, but if you can just go ahead and type it, Gio, I'd be more than happy to look at it. PPR, what is Collins worth? It depends. What's your record? Can you afford to take on Collins, or are you giving him away? That's the question. All right, until then, a real DYL says, Shakir and Neighbors for A.J. Brown and Laporta. Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, I would rather have the A.J. Brown-Laporta side of that overall conversation. If it was me and I had the choice, I'll take the A.J. Brown-Laporta side. Especially if I didn't have a tight end. Like, if I was, suffering with having to start Cade Otton or Tyler Conklin, yeah, I'll take the Laporta. Yeah, I'll take Laporta there. Alex number 9 says, I can't trust Olave. No. You've got it twisted, okay? Understand, guys. It's not that you can't trust Olave. You can't trust Derek fucking Carr. That's the issue, right? Like, again, you have to understand that a lot of the overall upside of your player is dictated and determined by the quarterback play. If the quarterback doesn't know how to throw the ball or doesn't know how to make proper decisions, that's on them. It's not on the receiver. Now, there are circumstances, certainly, that wide receivers don't find themselves open. But for however much New Orleans Saints football I've watched this season, I can assure you Olave is a great player, and Carr is just an absolute mess. He just started hot this year. Tolbert or Ray Davis? It depends, right? Like, Maddox, like, if you have James Cook, it's in your best interest to have Ray Davis on your roster, right? But if you're in a full PPR and you're like, okay, well, Ray Davis is only going to play 1 week and Tolbert's only going to play 1 week, I'd rather just play Tolbert against that, Detroit secondary. Is Slayton a good start if Neighbors is out? I would say so, yeah. I'd say that he's a solid top 30 wide receiver, if not better, for sure. Andrew, do I trade Bigsby for Bucky? I don't have an issue with that, but understand that, again, Bucky Irving, not a weekly start unless you're in like a really deep league. Same thing with Bigsby. They are guys like that require injuries to provide them more potential value in the future. They're both going to be guys that are going to get themselves like 8 to 10 touches a game, but they require injuries to be really like actual sufficient options in a given week. Full PPR trade Kamara and Kraft for Hill. That is, I need a full team context. Without a full team context, that one is there's a lot of risk in Hill. Giving away Kamara just for that is that one is I'd have to see all of your running backs before I can actually give a thumbs up or down on that one. Yeah, if you guys can do me a favor, if you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button down below. There's about 380 of you in here, only 62 likes. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. You may think, one like doesn't make a difference. Honestly, even if you click the dislike button, it all helps. The algorithm just wants interaction. That's all it wants. Thank you. Armando sends in a question, says, yo, Laporta for my JSN? Yeah, give away JSN. Get Laporta, absolutely. Or Coop / PRTA. Who the heck is PRTA? Oh, Porta. Okay. For Deontay Johnson. No, I'd just rather give... Well, look. Okay. Here's the thing. Amari Cooper, unless he gets traded, has no requisite value in that circumstance. So, for now, I'll just take the JSN, and I'd rather probably just keep Deontay there. Thank you. Salaris says, in a half PPR, more for Achane? If you have... Let me see your team, Salaris. Let me go back up here. Can I find... So, you're 4-1. In that circumstance, you have Ayuk, you have Wilson, you have Lamb... And then you eventually have, dude, if you can get away with that, I don't mind. I have no issue with that at all. There's inherent risk with everything. That is a given. But in that circumstance, I'm willing to take that risk. Trife sends in a question, says, Nico's hurt. My wide receiver room is bad. Question is in the chat. Okay, very well. I'll see if I can go find it, Trife. Trife says, I can also, okay, wait. Okay, here we go. 2 and 3 with Nico Collins and Puka Nacua on the injured reserve. My wide receivers as of right now are Zay Flowers, Jacoby Myers, Ray McLeod. Okay, not bad, honestly, and Quentin Johnston. Considering the injuries, I think you're still in a solid spot. Do I still hold Collins or try to wait for Puka to come back or sell Collins? Well, look, okay, so this is the way I see it. Like Myers and Zay Flowers are actually pretty solid options if you're playing in a 2 wide receiver start league. If it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I think you're in a perfect position to be able to survive until the return of Puka Nacua. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, honestly, Andrew, I just don't want to take the risk, then yes, you would take Nico Collins and you would try to theoretically trade him. Now, as for what you can get in exchange, you would go after players like Devontae Smith or a potential Chris Godwin, because again, you have to give away a player of Nico who's not going to play the next 4 weeks minimum, because there's always a potential of a re-aggravation of that injury. And you want to get a player that is still like in that tier 2, tier 3 wide receiver base, to where there's still going to be something in return to you that can start every single week. So if you can go after those kind of players, I don't have an issue with it. If you're not comfortable with Zay Flowers, Myers, until the return of Puka Nacua, of course. Because again, Puka will provide a lot of upside for your team until, of course, the return of Nico Collins, if you can wait it out. Nick LaRosa says, if White is out, okay, start Bucky or Dowdle. Okay, so when you say White, you mean Rashad White, right? Okay, and not Zamir. If Rashad White is out, I would rather play Bucky Irving over Rico Dowdle this week. Thank you. We move on to a question that comes in from Logan Land, as in like Legoland almost, huh? Kraft for Laporta and Worthy. Wait. Kraft for Laporta and Worthy. So when you say for, okay, when you structure the sentence in that form, right? When you say Kraft for Laporta and Worthy, it makes me think that you are trading away Kraft to get Kraft for... Yeah, if you can get Laporta and Worthy in that circumstance, then yes. I don't know who's making that trade and giving you Laporta and Worthy for Kraft, but hey, thank you very much. Shake their hand and get the heck out of there. If Jacobs pops off this week, should we sell high? I think it's dependent on what you can get in exchange. I think every player can be theoretically traded away. I don't think anybody is safe. Now, that being said, there are some players that I prefer to keep on my roster because I see the late-term value of them. They're like theoretically, like I'd like to have Jamar Chase on my roster rest of season. There's really very little instances in which I would move him. But every player I think is subject to being evaluated and potentially traded off of your team at any given moment if the right price is potentially bid by a different team. If someone wants to come out and give you a stud running back and wide receiver in exchange for Jacobs, then you take it. But again, it's very much so on the context of what you can get in exchange for a player of that caliber, assuming he's coming off of another great week here, which he should. Again, they play against Arizona. It's a top 6 matchup. And quite frankly, the offense is going to be far more potent with the upside that kind of exists with, Jordan Love back in the lineup. Sean says, Andrew just came in to let you know you cashed me 300 on that first quarter slip with Debo. Thanks, man. Listen, hold up. I'm just a mere messenger, okay? For the slip that hit today, I am just a mere messenger. I did nothing, okay? Did I provide the slips on screen? Yes. But the man who did it all, right here, you see this guy right here? This guy, Jordan Mason, this fucking beast, absolutely, with an injured shoulder, comes back into the game and delivers for all of us. So we can thank Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason absolutely helped us cash it out today. I wish I put more than $15, but you know that I'm telling you, man, that rushing yard total for Debo was still in question. I was always a little bit worried about that one. But nonetheless, Jordan Mason, thank you very much. We can all thank Mason and continue as such. Because obviously he's going to be out for a little bit with that shoulder. Hopefully not, though. Armando says, if you won't take JSN, accept the second offer of Deontay for Laporta. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm still okay with that. Yeah, Armando, sounds good. Abe in the chat says, would you trade Godwin for Cook or JT in a PPR? Would I trade Godwin for... I'd trade Godwin for JT right now. It's not even a question. I would do it immediately, actually. With the context of your team that I'm looking at, I would absolutely make that trade. And you have Sermon on your team? Abso-fucking-lutely. Yes, Abe, let's make the move. If you can do it, of course. I mean, if they want to back out last second, don't be surprised. Because, yeah, that would be in your favor for sure. Alrighty, let's go ahead and scroll back down. Let's see here. Mustafa Salah says, I have Kyrie Williams, I have Gibbs, I have Brian Robinson, Pollard, Javonte Williams. My tight end is Kincaid. Should I trade one of my running backs for Bowers/McBride? And who would I give to... Okay, so the way that I would potentially broker this deal... Okay, so if you're going to trade for Bowers or McBride, I would assume that that player would need to take Kincaid because they're probably not going to have a tight end of their own. So unless you can give me a confirmation that maybe they do have another tight end on their roster and they don't want Kincaid, that'll give me a little bit of an understanding as to how we can approach this deal. So yeah, otherwise, like if you can get, if they don't want a tight end, you have to give Brian Robinson. It would be Brian Robinson for either of the two because they're not taking Javonte and Kincaid. They would want Brian Robinson and I would do it at that point. I'll take Bowers or McBride for that in a full PPR. I'm cool with it. I don't have an issue. Again, you have Pollard, Gibbs, and Kenneth Walker rest of the season to be able to suffice at the running back position, and you're bolstering a position where you, of course, have no production out of Kincaid thus far. Western Good says, in a PPR, Njoku or Otton? I don't even know if Njoku's playing. Like, I know that he said he's going to play, but at what capacity? That is the issue. So I don't really trust it. I think I'd just rather play Otton at this moment, considering the New Orleans Saints have been kind of torched up by tight ends of the past a couple weeks here. And then as for your follow-up question, flexing Wicks, what is that? Michael Wilson, Moss. Quarterback is, and then it gets cut off. Let me see, Western Goods. Did you end up typing the rest of that question in the live chat? Let me check. Western. How long have we been here for? An hour 15? Okay, so we're almost coming to the end of the stream. Okay, so there was no other message. It kind of got cut off, Western. But in terms of those three potential options, if Moss is healthy, I'd play him. But he has to get a full practice by tomorrow. Otherwise, it's pivoting off to Wicks. Thank you. Aresh Garmavi says, Anthony, Caleb, or Goff this week. I would play Caleb Williams. Thank you. Moving on to Reese Thomas, who says, I'm currently 4-1. We have Fields, Bijan, Jacobs, Braylon Allen, Ford, Bigsby, A.J. Brown, Chase, Deontay Johnson, along with Dell, Ladd, Laporta, Kraft, and Hawkinson. Any moves? I mean, look, at this point, Kraft and Hawkinson are a perfect duo. Once Hawkinson returns, then you can potentially move Kraft off of this team. Fields is fine. Bijan's great. So is Jacobs. I mean, obviously, I don't want to have Ford on my team, but again, he's just fodder at this point. A.J. Brown, Chase, Deontay Johnson, Dell, Ladd. I mean, look, at this point, yeah, you're pretty solid right now. Like I mentioned to someone earlier, Dell and Ladd McConkey, you're waiting for them to have weeks this week and then potentially try to move them with Deontay Johnson to get a wide receiver improvement. And, you know, by the time we get to week 7, we'll be talking about who we're going after. Hopefully, you know, at that point, you might be going after, considering your 4-1 record, Waddle, Tyreek, Puka, Kupp. Those would be the players. You might be able to trade Deontay Johnson right now for one of those 4. And if you can, do it. Thank you. To the Max says, sup Andrew, in an 18 PPR with two flex options being offered Devontae Adams, Breece Hall for Hubbard, Brian Robinson. My running backs and wide receivers are, yes, I will take Adams and Hall rest of season, and I wouldn't even blink. Now, the issue is you're 1-4. Taking Adams and Hall is not a great look, considering Adams is not going to provide any depth. But looking at your roster with Gibbs, Bijan, Achane, getting Hall, you can survive and then just kind of wait it out. I think in terms of the long term, this is the best play for your team. In the short term, it does provide variable risk, but honestly, you're playing Gibbs and Bijan anyway. So I'd make the deal, honestly, to the max. I would. Twisted Folk sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, drop Wicks for Chase Brown or Tyre. Yes, without a doubt in my mind, I'm picking up Chase Brown immediately. He shouldn't have ever been on waivers. The guy needs to be on roster. Absolutely. Thank you. Armando says, sweet. Okay, he actually said he'd accept the first trade, but after this week, since JSN played, get it in writing. Do not let him back out. Get it in writing. Toby says, do I dump Dallas's defense and go streaming? Yes, I would go streaming. Absolutely. Dallas's defense is nothing like it was last season. It's not. The defensive coordinator changed, the personnel change, the injuries that they've sustained. It just really hasn't helped. So yeah, let's go waiver wiring and let's go streaming. Andy sends in a question, says, drop Fields for Darnold. I have Dak for this week. I'm okay with that. I mean, look, in terms of Fields versus Darnold, I could very easily see Fields outproducing him in certain circumstances, but it's a matter of matchup, truly. So if you want to roll with Darnold the rest of the season, I don't have an issue with it. I think he'll be sufficiently enough of a top potential 10 option at quarterback the rest of the season. I don't have an issue with it. Nick Pitara says, playing against Drake London, but I'm starting Jamison Williams and Laporta. Do I start Cousins or Goff for the stack? Okay, wow. Between the two, again, like I mentioned in earlier today's tight end and quarterback rankings video for week 6, the issue that I have with Jared Goff is that I'm always going to be afraid of the potential rushing upside of Gibbs and Montgomery, variably just lowering his overall upside and the overall touchdown opportunities there for Goff. So that risk in itself scares me to the point to where, honestly, I'd just rather play Cousins in the better matchup in Kirktober. Thank you. Bed Bosch sends in a question, says, drop Keon Coleman or Keenan Allen for Whittington. I'm a Cup owner. What are your thoughts on Polk and Douglas? I'm thinking of stashing both ahead of the quarterback change. If I was going to pick one of those two wide receivers, again, I'd probably... you'd have to flip a coin. Obviously, Douglas has been more relevant as of late, but Polk plays more offensive snaps and could have scored that game-winning touchdown if it wasn't for the fact that the NFL has some bogus rules in terms of touchdowns. But would I drop Keon Coleman or Keenan Allen for Whittington? No. As a Cooper Cup manager, understand that he probably comes back next week, and Whittington will be rendered a little bit lesser of an option every single week subsequently after, once we get to Puka and his overall upside. Moving on to the question that comes in from Sheffinabi. Yeah. Sheffinabi says, trade McLaurin and Ladd for Tyreek Hill and Adunze. Yes. Please and thank you. If you have a 3-2, 4-1, 5-0 record, this actually is something that I would go after in your circumstance. There are many of teams out there that I would not suggest going after this because, again, there is so much variable risk with Tua and the potential of, again, losing the next couple weeks here and really doing yourself a disservice in terms of the long-term success of your team and having to potentially win out if you leave yourself in a 1-6 situation. But if you're in a comfortable situation in terms of you have a balanced win-loss record, I'm willing to make that move. All right, guys. I do appreciate y'all coming through, again, supporting the channel. If you guys want my rankings every Sunday morning and, of course, potentially want to trail the picks in which we get saved by Jordan Mason, just check out Underdog. There's a link down in the description. When you sign up using code Andrew and make a first-time deposit minimum of $10, not only will you get the rankings every Sunday morning, but you'll, of course, be able to potentially tail some pick'em entries going into the week. I'll mention more pick'em entries at the end of tomorrow's potential video in regards to, hidden gems. So at the end of tomorrow's video, that'll be available. Tomorrow night, I will be live streaming here on the channel while I watch the Dodgers game as my Dodgers take on the Padres in Game 5. Outside of that, I'll be back on Saturday afternoon as well, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and also Sunday morning starting at 6 a.m. So a lot of live streams every day. I counted it up. I think we're like 37 days consecutive in terms of live streams. We're continuing it every single week, every single night, and of course, trying to provide as much value as possible. I appreciate y'all supporting. I'm going to go ahead and head out. Typically, I like to have these streams at about an hour, hour and a half. We're at an hour 23 thus far. I appreciate y'all. And that's going to cut it here. I'm going to cue the music. Enjoy the rest of your night. And until next time, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you. Peace.